Hey, welcome to Inside the Booth. I'm David Arena, and that's my brother Daniel Arena. And we have our guest, Christopher Hopper, with us tonight.
Hey.
Before we get into introducing, just want to say thank you to all of our subscribers. We've made 170, so the goal is 200 for the new year, and I think we're heading in the right direction. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate your support. So,
Definitely.
So tonight, an old friend of ours, Christopher Hopper, author, and everything else. Father, husband. Welcome, bro. Welcome to Inside the Booth, man.
It's good to be here with you guys inside the booth. Come on.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm really honored for the invitation, so thanks for putting this together.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for being able to join us. Man,
yes.
I was kind of excited and nervous all at the same time.
We're
bigwig now, you know.
Yeah, we're moving up. We're moving up in the world now.
You have a crazy bald white man on your show who writes books all by himself for hours at a time. I mean,
yes.
What's not to love?
I mean, hey, that's fun, you know. That's where it's at.
All right, bro.
All right. So, you also do you still write songs, Chris?
I have not. Right now most of my music time goes into supporting my wife's career. So when I'm writing or playing, it's for Jennifer Hopper. Little plug, woo woo.
Yeah.
And,
woo woo.
And that's, I just have realized that most people bought our music not because of me on it, but because she was singing on it. So we just finally, it was time for me to hang up the guitar. So.
Nice.
Bittersweet, right?
So it's been good. I really love watching her and her gifting, and so when I am playing music now on the road or in the studio or here in the house, it's usually around whatever project she's working on. So those who've known me as a musician, it's still in there. That'll never go away, but it's taken a different role, I'd say, in my life.
Okay.
That's awesome,
good.
man.
Good. Now, what about I know in the past you were a youth pastor / associate pastor. Are you still involved in the church, or are you kind of faded away from doing all that stuff?
Well, I'm around as long as they want me around. Might be like the moss that clings to a rock wall somewhere in the building, but
nice.
So we were on staff from 2005 up until September of last year. So just over a year ago since I retired, and it's really neat. We still go to the same church, and we get to be a part of the community that we helped build for 15 years, and that's really special.
That's awesome.
The people there have man, they didn't skip a beat, man. I mean, it literally went from Christopher serving on staff as a pastor to now I'm a volunteer, and to be a lay person in this church is really special. And it's unique too, because we know the challenges that leadership faces, and therefore I think we can support them in unique ways, and we know how to encourage them. We know what they've been through because we've walked in those shoes, literally. And so that's really special, and it's just neat, so to be there as just a normal person today, worshiping with our family this morning and cheering the team on. It's pretty cool. So
it's awesome.
That's good. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I guess now we will go into the main interview about your books.
Yes.
The main reason we are here to talk about these awesome books that you write.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I guess the first question would be, you write them yourself, correct? Or do you have a co-writer, some other people? I mean, how does that all come together?
Yeah, so good question. I really believe in team. They make for better products. They make for more sane individuals. And I'm a pretty social guy. So if I was just doing this completely by myself, I'd get a little, I'd drive myself a little stir crazy. So
I know the feeling.
Yeah. So everything I've released, so I just celebrated today the release of Ruins of the Earth Book 2, which is a new prequel series to our main Ruins of the Galaxy series, and that came out today. And those are
awesome.
co-authored. Thank you. Yeah. Those are co-authored with my partner Jeff Cheney, known in the industry as J.N. Cheney. Okay. And he's a USA Today best-selling author, extremely savvy businessman, just all-around great guy. I love that we get to work together. And our arrangement is very unique, and I'm seeing this a lot more in this kind of modern indie publishing movement, which I love being a part of. And that is, you typically have one person who's what we call a lead writer, and they'll take the brainstorm session and distill that down into an outline. And then from that outline, the lead writer takes it and just writes the book. The other model of that would be you take the outline and divvy up the chapters according to who has the desire to write a particular scene or section. And then you just trade those chapters back and forth until they distill down into a really concise singular voice that's a mix of both authors, but that's very tedious. And that's what I would call the old model. And I've done that before. Wayne Thomas Batts and I did that with the Barenfell Prophecies. But you need a year to do that, in my opinion. And we can't write books in a year anymore. The market is far too demanding, and readers devour things so quickly.
Right.
So now what we do is this modified version where I'll write the whole book, start to finish. Which is great because it's like, leave me alone. Let me craft this thing and get it where I think it needs to be. I work with a team of alpha readers, so a little shout out to them if they're watching tonight. My Recon Alpha and my Unity Alpha readers, they literally read every chapter I write as soon as I'm done writing it. It just goes right to them, and they can say anything they want. They have carte blanche to critique it, and that's great because I'm getting to hear from our audience what they want. And I want to write what they want. So once I'm done with the book, that goes to Jeff, and he'll go through it and do whatever he wants. Typically, he's like, this is great. We talked about it. Let's go. And it goes to our senior editor, and she'll go through it. And then it goes back to beta readers. And so by the time it hits the public, it's probably seen no less than 30 sets of eyes. Wow. And we turn these around every 4 to 8 weeks, depending upon the series and the demand. But to give you one more example it is really fast. And that's because what readers want. Right. And I love the indie movement because traditional pubs can't handle this. They would not know what to do with 6 to 8 releases a year. That's just they're not set up for that. And whereas Amazon's like, you want to sell books? Great, we'll sell them, and reward you for that. So, but I'm working right now on Wayward Galaxy Book 2, and Wayward Galaxy is the brainchild of Jason Onspach, who many people will know from Galaxy's Edge, and he partnered up with Jeff Cheney to write the book 1, and then they said, hey, why don't we bring Hopper in? Which I'm like, hey, you're two of my favorite people, two of my favorite writers. And so I'm lead writing Wayward Galaxy 2, and Jason Onspach is overwriting, and then Jeff Cheney is proofreading. So, awesome. And we all work on the outline and kind of beat that thing up and got it to tame down into something that's more manageable. So
that's cool.
This is a little glimpse of how this new kind of co-writing world looks and feels.
Well, personally, that's just a lot of information for somebody who's not in the writing world, that doesn't know anything about all this stuff. So it was very interesting. So thank you. It makes me not want to write.
I was just going to say, was that code for I'm so not interested?
I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be a writer. And if God calls me to write an autobiography, I'll call up Chris Hopper and say, bro, help.
Nice.
Beautiful. So another question about all that. So where do you find these people to co-write with? Where did you find like your co-writer and all your friends and all that stuff?
Oh, that's a cool question. I think they found me.
Nice.
Oh yeah. Oh nice. That's cool.
You know, I think any movement, any art form, any hobby has its own sense of gravity to it, and people, you know, get pulled together from that gravity. And I like how C.S. Lewis described friendship, which is you're going through life, and suddenly somebody bumps into you, and you both kind of say, "Oh, you too." And I
That's
think
good.
yeah, he's a smart guy. He was a sharp one. I think that's a little bit how this writing has developed, which is there are people who love reading books, and they read a lot, and they read very quickly. And if you will honor them as fellow human beings and converse with them, which is something I love about social media, for all the negative things I could say. You know, I have never in my life had as much interaction with my readership and my listenership, because audio is huge right now, as we do in 2020. And I think it's something that a lot of authors miss out on, whether they don't like to or they don't feel they have the capacity for. I think there's a lot of reasons, but in my case, one of my favorite things to do is to interact with our readers and to talk to them and send them video shout outs and find out what they're interested in. And so social media has made that possible. So for Jeff and I just began writing Ruins of the Galaxy Book 1 in December of 2018. And he saw me online, that I was active and talking to readers and a part of a couple different Facebook groups. And then we just ended up chatting Facebook message. And he was one of the few people who wrote me back. And again, you just don't know who you're talking to. And it goes both ways, both from people at the top. They might be talking to the next Christopher Hopper. I don't know. You just never know. And so the fact that here's this untouchable guy in my mind, and he's willing to ask me, hey, how's your writing going? What are you interested in? And I remember it was the last day of December of 2018, New Year's Eve. And I asked him, I said, hey, Jeff, I was really bold. I was like, would you be willing to read the first page of my book? Which is I think a lot of times in the arts, we make the mistake of asking someone at the top of their game to look at the entire composition, whether it's the whole screenplay or the whole movie or you look at this whole thing and critique. Well, you just ask them for thousands of dollars of their time. You don't know that you did because you're not thinking that way. Ask something much more manageable and you'll get a response. And I asked Jeff if he would be willing to read the first page of my first book. And he said yes, on New Year's Eve. He said, send it right now.
Oh, nice.
I'm like, wait, right now? Right now? He said, yeah, send it over. I have a party in about half an hour, but I'll look at the first page. And 4 minutes later, he wrote me back and he said, do you want a job? Do you want to write together? Nice. It took me 6 months to answer that question because I was overwhelmed and didn't know what to say. But that eventually turned into the relationship that we have today, which is now several, Amazon #1 bestsellers and 2-hit series. And I think, as they say, the rest is history. So
yeah.
Anyway,
did you write books before Ruins of the Galaxy? I mean,
yes,
I remember vaguely, right before I left New York or the Livingston County area. I remember vaguely that you were writing books, but I didn't know. So I'm just.
Yeah, that I think the story, and I may have talked about this elsewhere, but growing up in central New York, outside of Ithaca, born 1979, April 25th, Ithaca, New York.
All right.
I
got me by 2 years.
Oh, okay. Born to a mom and dad who were very artistic, and went to this great Christian private school that had family member, parents come in and read during what we called Friday morning encounter, and they would read us stories. And I just remember being completely enamored when the parent would get up to read the story. Something sparked in me. And so I remember very early on, even though I was marked as a slow reader in school and refused to read, which I'm embarrassed to say that now, it wasn't until I was 18 that I discovered the love of reading. And a friend of mine handed me a book by Stephen R. Lawhead. And that book changed my life, for real.
Awesome.
I discovered what everybody was talking about, like why they loved reading so much. And I made this comment, which is, if I ever write one day, I want to write like Stephen Lawhead to inspire non-readers like me to read. And so anyway, all that to say that I set out pretty soon after that. I was probably, I want to say I was 20 when I started really seriously thinking I'm going to write a book one day. And then by 2005, had my first book published with a small press out of California. So between 2005 and 2013, wrote and published 7 books. And then took this really long break because I thought I was done from 2013 to last year, 2019. So yeah, took a 6-year break. And it was just one of those things that was like dormant in my heart. I knew it was there, but it was my wife who called it out and was like, babe, of all the things that you can do and do well, the thing that you can do that no one else can do is write the books and the stories that are in your heart.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so she was the one I think really called it out of me. And what people read is the result of her faithfulness.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Well, that answers some of the other questions I had about your journey going through it. So, so I guess here's another question. Where and who came up with the art on the covers of your Guardians of the Galaxy books, and I guess the new one that's coming out that came out today?
If I wrote Guardians of the Galaxy,
I was gonna say it's Ruins, bro. Ruins.
Oh, Ruins. Oh, sorry. My bad. Sorry
I
about
would have
that.
flown us all to one location so we could do this interview, but I didn't write those books or those stories.
Sorry.
Shucks. No,
Ruins.
not at all.
Ruins
Not at all.
again.
No. It's quite common. Don't worry. The artwork. So there's a cool backstory. Hold on, I'm gonna get something for you to show you.
Okay.
So the very first, let's see. I'll get a couple books here. So the very first edition of Ruins of the Galaxy is right here. Let me get it right there.
Oh, nice.
So this is no longer in print. This was what I released. I released the first 3 books in the summer of 2019. And the artist who did these is out of Syracuse, New York. His name is Matt Flint. And I always try to give him a shout out whenever I can because I just loved this is really, it's cover art, but it's even more concept art for the characters.
Yeah.
And
That's cool.
so this was something I put out, and this was before Jeff and I had really connected. And after those 3 books came out, Jeff was like, man, your writing is, I feel honored that he would say this, your writing is so quality, it's so good, it needs a bigger audience. So why don't we take those 3 books, we'll repackage them, we'll re-edit them, do new back matter description, and then we'll relaunch them all with our audience.
Awesome.
And I was like, you know what, let's do it. I want them to reach people, and I've always just what I said before, believed in team. Yeah. And so when we relaunched, they went with Variant Publication has their own artist on staff, and because artists are highly sought after, and artists become brands, I cannot tell you contractually who our artist is. Which I would love to shout from the rooftops. However, I'll just say he is in very high demand, and he has become the Ruins of the Galaxy. Like
Nice.
there becomes a brand with these. I'll show you my favorite one since we're on a fun podcast tonight.
All right.
This is
right.
this is book 8 in the series of Ruins of the Galaxy, and it's just not what you would expect in sci-fi. Like
Yeah.
this
That's
space
cool.
marine
That's cool.
underwater, with manta rays, and it's like the aqua is so beautiful in person. I think it's translating fairly well, but in person it's really gorgeous. And so that brand recognition is important for us. And then the new series, the book that came out, this is the first in the series. But again, the artist just did a knockout job. And it's one of those things that kind of invites you in and goes, okay, what is in that ring? Why is this Stargate but cooler? And I want to know. So that's just fun. So anyway, big shout out to Matt Flint in Syracuse. His art is incredible, and really love his work. And then I love the other artists that we've been able to work with as well. So
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Let me just look at my paper here real quick, because you covered a lot of stuff.
Cool. These are good questions. I'm appreciative of
the
investigation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
here's a personal kind of wondering, I guess you could say, where did you come up with like the language, and where did you come up with like some of your characters? They use kind of a little bit of vulgar language. So how did that come out? So, because we're all Christians and we're supposed to be the I'm just
You're stereotyping us.
Yes. I'm stereotyping us. I just want to.
I will introduce. Yeah, I will introduce you to my Christian friends in Australia and Europe because they'll make you blush. But it's so I think first of all, to answer the larger language question, language is this beautiful living entity that is almost never the same 2 days in a row. I mean, you talk about something that's progressive and always advancing and being shaped and formed. I'm listening to a lecture right now. It's like a 17-hour lecture on Audible about the history of language in the human species. Absolutely fascinating. I mean, I think you have to be a major nerd and love words to love this 17-hour lecture, but it's right up my alley. And looking at how things morph and change. And so I think a lot of my je parle français aussi, alors I think a lot of the things, I speak French as well, so there's that sense of I love languages. I speak a little bit of Spanish, learning Italian, and then informed a lot by Latin. And so there's this sense of all of that, plus a good healthy dose of J.R.R. Tolkien and George MacDonald, and C.S. Lewis, and Frank Herbert. There's just, so all those things I think inform you as a writer. And I would love to say that I have this huge system for coming up with character names and odd terminology, but at this point, it literally just pops out. And I'm just like, I talk a lot when I'm writing, so I'll be talking as the characters are speaking. And what would they call this thing? Oh, that's a corgachirp. That's a stuffed corgachirp. That's what she's carrying around. An Optuna trunkfish. Those things just smell terrible, but boy, do Jujari love them. So, excuse me, Reptilons love them. So, it's just fun, and I think language is meant to be fun and an expression of who we are as people and who characters are. So, coming into your second question, which is how do you swear? How do you justify swearing, Christopher? I think that's really what you were trying to ask me.
I guess so. Yeah. I was just shocked when I heard it. I was like, wait a minute, Chris is okay with this? Okay, whatever. I mean.
So it's a fantastic question. And I have an essay I'm working on this, and I'll probably include it in a larger book on what it means to be a creative in the world. But it's very interesting because there's not a lot of vulgarity in Ruins of the Galaxy. I wrote that for a very broad demographic. My 9-year-old can read it, and I have readers in their 70s and 80s. And most of the expletives that I have are invented expletives. You'll have hell and damn. You'll have later, toned down swear words, but some of the other things I've invented. Which is very interesting, by the way, when you think about it, that I've invented an expletive, which really shows it's not the word itself. It's always how it's used and what the character means when they use it.
That's good.
That's why I have friends, who are pastors from Australia that use words that would make people blush. And people in my dad's church growing up were like, oh my gosh, because to them it didn't have the same meaning. Right.
Yeah,
so language is very subjective.
Yes.
And so that being said, Ruins of the Earth is written primarily for those who love military science fiction. And I loved this conversation I had with one of my sons. He was reading Ruins of the Galaxy, and he's like, Dad, in chapter 30, Magnus opens the chapter by saying, damn it. And I said, yeah. I said, what do you think that is? Why do you think that is? And he had the best answer. He goes, well, he's a Marine. Marines swear a lot. And I'm like, yes. And so the point being, why do my characters in Ruins of the Earth swear more? Because these are all military characters. In fact, if I really wrote the way that military personnel speak, and I'm saying this as someone who is surrounded by soldiers here at Fort Drum, military installation in northern New York, and who uses a lot of alpha readers who are both active duty and veteran. These books would be well beyond rated R in their content. And so the question becomes, am I writing to be faithful to characters, or am I writing to be faithful to my own worldview in everything I do? And I think that's a major hang-up because...
so how do you mix the two?
Yeah, and so this is a great question. And this is very interesting when people are like, hey, your character swore. And I go, my very first response is, and that's the thing that bothered you? The time where they stabbed the innocent person in the side of the neck with a K-bar and pulled it through their throat and then let the blood squirt out, that didn't bother you? How about the that mass genocide that we just read about? That's not the thing that hung you up? Like the raping of that character in their backstory, that didn't bother you that I wrote that? But the fact that they said beep, that bothered you?
That's a good point.
Wow, that's really interesting. So in other words, what we're really saying is it's we're okay when our art is tame and only looks at one or two particular things, instead of, actually, as a Christian, I believe it's my duty to be able to write about the entire human experience as widely and diversely as possible, because if I claim that I am connected with the creator of the heavens and the earth, which I do make that claim as humbly as I can, then that gives me a perspective of everything he has made, and therefore it is in my domain to write about and be expressive about. Said more simply, Magnus, Adonis Olin Magnus is not Christopher Hopper, and Magnus and Christopher do not speak the same way. Patrick Wick Finnegan in Ruins of the Earth is not Christopher Hopper, and Christopher and Wick are not the same person. And so if people have a hard time with how to self-delineate and know where they start and stop, where the character starts and stops, and where the author starts and stops, if they don't know how to manage that from an intellectually mature point of view, they will have a very hard time reading these books as whatever religion or spiritual following they're a part of. If they are well self-differentiated, they'll be able to understand completely, oh, I understand what's happening here because this is true to who that character is.
It's good. It's good. Cool. It just makes me think about the Bible too. If you actually read the Bible, you know how like rough that is with some
Bro,
of the
it's
books.
steamy. It's steamy. I mean, it's messy. It's gritty. The Bible does not dress up well for a date.
No, does not.
And anybody who claims that it's nice and tidy has not read it faithfully.
Yeah, they didn't read all of it. They read parts, but maybe not all of it.
Yep.
So
Yep. Well said.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you.
So while we're on this character spiel, what makes a good character for you? What makes it,
Flaws. Absolutely flaws. I think that, when we're talking about art and movies and books and characters, something I've picked up in my studies of really good screenwriters and really good authors is the fact that the stories that stick with us the most are not situations. This is going to sound redundant. They're stories. What do I mean? A situation is something that could happen to anyone. In other words, we have three of us tonight: Dan, David, Christopher, and put us in a car wreck, and it's a Jeep that drives off a bridge, into a pond, and all three of us experience that same car wreck. That is a situation. That's not a story. And a lot of times people try to write a movie, a book, and it's just one situation after the next. It's just plodding along. And it could be intense. It could be they drive into the pond and then they climb out and they fall over a waterfall. And then they are, pinned down from the water, drilling down on top of their head. And they climb out of that and they find themselves on a beach and a storm pulls them into the waves. And that happens to all three of us. Those are three different situations in a larger, storyline here. The problem with that is that doesn't engage me because any one of us could be put into that situation and we'd all try to find a way through it. But if David has a fear of water because he saw his relative drowned at the age of 5, and forgive me, I don't know if this is your story.
No. I have a little bit of fear of ocean water because we visited North Carolina one time and I got pulled under a ripcord, so that was fun.
So that fear is now a character flaw, so that where Dan and I, being car wreck goes off the bridge into a pond, we're just like, well, that was inconvenient, but fortunately hit water. It could have been a wall. David is going, this is the end of my life. And so what we're really saying is what makes a great story is no one else but David could go through this whole saga the same way. And it's so unique to who he is. And we're just pushing that button over and over. What will David do if we drop him into a pond in a car wreck? What will David do, knowing he's afraid of water, if we put him under a waterfall? What will David do on the beach if he's pulled into the ocean by a riptide? Like, what will, with his back pushed against the wall, what will David do? I don't care what Dan does. He's not afraid of the water. I don't care what Christopher does, but I care what David will do. That is a story. By the way, I just described in a roundabout way the movie Jaws. The sheriff, right? The sheriff is afraid of water, and yet he's the sheriff of a coastal town.
Yeah,
it's not about the shark. It is about what will the sheriff do when his back is pressed against the wall and he's on a sinking boat with a man-eating shark coming at him because he's deathly afraid of water. That's a story, and that's a character I want to read. So, flaws, to answer your question.
That's cool.
Nice. That's cool. All right, so how'd you come up with plots that span 9 books?
Oh,
and
that's
then
a great
obviously
question too.
the prequel is coming, So how do you come up with all that stuff? You just go one by one. You put it all together. I mean, how's that work?
Well, this is going to be the master class. So we're gonna have to start charging people $1,000 for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Right? Yeah.
we start that now.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
go ahead. I think there's a donate
Masterclass
button
101.
somewhere.
Right.
Come on, everybody.
So I think that a lot of people approach art when they're new and think I have one good idea, and they hold to it really, really tightly. That person is usually not cut out for a serial creative life.
Okay.
What I mean by that is I'm not downplaying that one idea, nor their ability to pull it off or execute it. But it cannot be a career. That's not a lifestyle to live.
Right.
Then there is another type of creator who goes, wait, I have 1,000 good ideas. And if you say I have 1,000 good ideas, what you're actually saying is I have tens of thousands of ideas. I have a limitless supply of ideas. And that's a very different, that is a prolific creator. And there's a big difference. And so a lot of times I'll even meet new authors who are like, man, I've had this idea for a book since I was 12 years old. And I really want to write it. And I'll tell them, great, write it, get it out of your system. And when it's done, because it's your passion project, then come talk to me about what it takes to be a full-time writer, because they're very, very different things. Your passion may not be the thing that makes you money. In fact, it probably is not, but your proficiency is. And so let's get the passion thing out of the way. And now let's talk about what it takes to be an artist who generates income, if that's even an aim. So when you're asking me, how do you come up with plots that stretch 9 books? I would say I'm a prolific idea maker, and I am surrounded by other prolific idea makers. And so when that happens, it literally, it's inexhaustible. If anything, I feel like the characters will tell you when the story's done. Their particular arcs are coming to a close, or you just feel like, man, if I don't either heal or kill this character soon, people are going to start to, it's not going to pass the sniff detector anymore. They're going to be like, you're just trying to make money on me now. Like,
right.
Somebody would have died by now, or somebody would have found their golden chalice already. Like, you've drawn it on too long.
Nice.
So I think maybe in a little more practical sense, what I do try to do is, hey, this is where things start. And I know at the end they need to blow up the Death Star. I can take that and break that into 3 sections and start to pull that apart, and then look at each microcosm within that larger macrocosm. And that's just serializing, any content. Excuse me, I should say episodic. It's different than serializing. Episodic, to where one definitely is contingent upon the next. And that's what we're writing. We're writing episodic fiction. And it's a lot of fun. There's just a lot to play with. It's like going in the backyard with a sandbox and playing with action figures. I get paid to play in my backyard. That's what I do.
Nice.
I think I'll say one thing to that. I've seen a lot of creators in both print and visual arts. They end up giving away too much too soon. They want to use exposition to tell the whole story right away, because they just can't. They can't handle this their own personal anxiety and tension. They just want to get it out of their system. There it is, and you're like, great. What's book 2 about? I don't know. I think I just wrote it all. and you got it. That's where good coaching comes in and says, no, you actually had 5 books in there. That's what I see a lot. I'm like, dude, you just gave me in 2 chapters what could sustain you for a whole book if you slow down and invite the reader into this exploratory journey with you.
Nice. That's really cool. I have a question. So C.S. Lewis, I heard you mention his name, and then I read your article, and Jennifer said something about you being like C.S. Lewis. So do you have an allegory in any of your books that refer to Jesus or to, Christian views or whatever? So I'm just curious.
Beautiful question. I think there is overt and covert art. I think there is art of intrusion and art of invitation. And all of those things have varying degrees and varying scales. I have very overt expressions of spirituality in the White Lion Chronicles, my very, very first trilogy. Okay. The entire premise of that 3-book series is, what if there was a world in which their Adam and Eve never sinned? Would Lucifer be back to tempt a second time? And if so, cool. What would the corruption of the world look like if Adam and Eve made different decisions? So that's very overt. I'm writing to a specific Judeo-Christian audience in North America.
Yeah.
With Ruins of the Galaxy, there is none of that. I did not sit down and say I'm writing to Christians. I wrote down and said I want to write very fun, entertaining books.
Cool.
Full stop. There's no agenda. There's no like Trojan horse that I'm trying to slip in and somehow corrupt people. Now, that said, and there's no offense. I don't have, I've done both. So it's not like I'm throwing any other authors under the bus. And if that's what you feel called to do, that's what you feel called to do. But I wanted to have fun because, interestingly, I believe that fun is a divine characteristic of God.
Yeah, definitely.
I believe God has fun. I mean, look at creation. Look at us. Look at me, for crying out loud. If he doesn't like fun, then he made a mistake. So, and obnoxious and crazy and impatient and impetuous. So I think that there's this sense of what we have created as we talk about language. Why is language taboo? Why is sex taboo? Why is evil taboo? Why is tension taboo? None of the, I love the Hebrew tradition because the Hebrew tradition teaches that all of life is pleasing to God. And that the whole thing, holistically, there is no delineation between secular and sacred. It is all sacred because it is all his creation. Right. That's a very different worldview than white North American evangelicalism. And so I'm very careful when I, talk about these things because my view is not the rest of the world's view. Anyway, all that to say, my asterisk to this is in Ruins of the Galaxy and Ruins of the Earth. I can't help but not emote part of who I am into these characters. And so I had one friend, real good friend of mine. He's a church planter in Czech Republic. And he's been very influential in a lot of the story's developments as a volunteer. And he said, Christopher, the gospel is all over these books. Like, it's everywhere. You can't remove redemption from your stories. It would be like taking air out of your lungs. And I really appreciate it. Was a really kind word. And when I do look at it objectively, I think Christianity doesn't have the carpet on redemption. But they are very distinct themes that we see: sacrificial love, the surrender of self, the desire to conquer evil and to keep harm from coming to the innocent and the needy. Those kinds of things are all through. So I think if you have the eyes to see it, it's there. But again, this is not allegorical at all. And yet I have written allegorical work. And to my wife's amazing compliment to me, which I will spend the rest of my life trying to live up to. I do plan on writing some nonfiction beginning next year as well. And cool. That's kind of along the lines of the podcast and, how to look at life as a healthy individual self, well differentiated with good boundaries, and how do I relate to the world around me? So I hope it's helpful.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I
Good
guess
question.
that was,
guys, you guys are good
that
interviewers.
was going to be my next, yeah.
Well, we've been practicing, so,
Yeah, I mean, on other
I
people.
can tell.
Yeah. I stayed up all night writing questions, so it was fun for me. I was like, how am I gonna do this? I was
Cool. It's good.
All righty. So let's see here. I think you may have answered most of these questions. Yeah.
So, on a fun note,
Yeah.
what'd you think of Mandalorian? Do you watch it?
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh, there you go.
It's I gotta say, I love that they have chosen to release them on Fridays.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
in this
nice.
age of binging and everything's just available, I think there is something to the magic of making an audience wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing my kids rally around it. Like we have, you know, growing up, you had the show that was only on at 7 p.m., you know, 6 Central on Thursday nights, or Full House on Fridays, or TGIF, right? And you just look forward to that. The show could suck, and you were still drawn in because it made you wait. And so, interestingly, in psychology, delayed gratification as a personal discipline is one of the marks of a mature human.
Yeah.
Interesting that we have created systems that fight against that mark, right? So we're actually resisting the maturation of a particular demographic by saying you can have anything you want whenever you want it. That's not healthy individuality, nor is it healthy community, in my opinion. Anyway, I'm totally digressing off your question. What do I think about The Mandalorian?
Okay.
I love The Mandalorian. I think it's so much fun. You know, we get to have.
Oh, there goes Baby Yoda.
Oh yeah, Baby Yoda. That's the best. I love it.
I love that there are things that I like about it. There are things that my kids like about it. My wife likes about it, and it brings us together. And you know, we see Baby Yoda, the child, and we all just like giggle and like, oh, he's so cute.
Oh yeah.
And I think another impression is I love the minimalism to it all. I don't know what your guys' thoughts, but I think that the lack of dialogue, the slow pace, it just slows you right down. Like there's this deceleration. It is. And then the textures, the aesthetics, like it's a great package in my mind.
Yeah. I enjoyed the fact that it's like a spaghetti western. It's like
the
Mandalorian. He's the Lone Ranger basically. He's just doing his thing, taking out the bad guys, and he's like an anti-hero. He's not even considered a hero, but he's found compassion for Baby Yoda. So like everything he does now is parenting. He's like, I gotta take care of this little guy. So I just enjoy it.
and okay, so let's go back. Why it's so compelling? It's not a situation. You have a Mandalorian who is forced to parent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He is forced to care for a child, and he sees, I think he has to see himself, because we kept getting these glimpses of his backstory of what the trauma that he endured as a child. And so this kind of, juxtaposition of a violent, feared, highly trained, stoic warrior connected to this. I'm like, that's why I watch. That's just the best.
Yeah, definitely. You saw episode 2, right? From season 2?
Dude. Yeah.
So my daughter was watching it with me. She was watching it with me. My daughter's 7. And I'm like, this might not be good. So I said, Eliana, close your eyes. And she's like, okay, is it scary, Daddy? It's weird. It might not be good for you later on. But she was, like every kid. I don't see anything. And today she was talking all about how these spider creatures came out and fought the Mandalorian, and how the X-Wings came in. And I'm like, I thought you closed your eyes. Yeah, I did.
That's good.
I'm like, okay.
Kind of.
That's good.
But yeah, that whole I was like, oh man, Hoth planet almost. That's what I was thinking when they landed on there.
Yeah.
But,
totally. No, it's they've done a beautiful job, and Dave Filoni, one of the X-wing pilots and director.
Oh, really? He played an X-wing pilot. That's cool.
Yes,
Oh, nice.
yeah, in both season 1 and season 2.
Oh, nice.
You know, I love those cameos, those kinds of things. But
Yeah.
it's just good storytelling, and I think one of the things that's refreshing about it, you pointed out the spaghetti western, and you know, westerns, as a genre, share something unique, which is the lack of organized government.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas anything else, a war movie has governments in play. Star Wars has the Republic, or the New Republic, or the Old Republic. There's the Empire. There's these massive monolithic things, whereas the Western is devoid of the overarching that thing in the background.
Yeah, it's all about doing the right thing.
Yeah. We are law unto ourselves.
Yeah.
For good or for bad. And I think there's something that resonates right now in our culture with that, where there's skepticism about government systems. It's almost that personal look inward of what would I do in this situation as a morally right or morally wrong individual. And I think there's something deep in our culture that the Mandalorian is resonating with.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's a cool moment for it to be released.
Definitely. I also, since we're on the TV thing here, live streaming and everything, did you see The Chosen? I'm a big fan of The Chosen, man. I'm like pushing Chosen.
We just watched an episode tonight as a family.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
The Chosen is such a refreshing experience with Jesus and the apostles. Like the whole thing is like just all about being real. And I love every little thing about Jesus, because he's like, they made him humanized, but he's still God the Son. So like he interacts with us as a human being, you know? Yeah. And he had like moments where he'd wink at somebody, he'd nod and smile, you know? It's just like you can relate, you know? You're like, yes, The Chosen. Yeah. So I'm psyched about season 2, you know, because they got fully funded, and they're a crowd-funded, you know, show. It's not, they're not getting money from big corporations to do it. It's the little guys like us donating. So that makes it even more fun to watch, because you're like, this is something that everybody's a part of. It's not just one corporation, you know? So
agreed. And going back to your point, there's a stream of scholarship that is, for lack of a better term, called the contextualization group, or the context group. And they're scholars who really study what did it feel like? What did first century Palestine feel like? What did it smell like? How are these customs interpreted? Why was that thing that Jesus said in Matthew so provocative? And I think, okay, so back to your point, I think that's what we need to see. I mean, we just watched the episode with the children.
Oh, that's my favorite one.
Oh man, and you have Jesus, who actually looks like a Jew. Oh my goodness, he doesn't have blue eyes and blonde hair. Thank God. And he's just making fart noises with the kids. I'm like, yes, because what adult hasn't done that with children? I mean, you know, it's just a beautiful connection piece. That he truly was God in the flesh. Yeah. And when we say in the flesh, we have to identify in the flesh. You know, he acted like we do. He talked like we do. If he didn't, then it defeats the purpose. Right. So yeah, I think it's really, really well done. Yeah. I'll say it this way. Some Christian art that we don't have to be embarrassed about.
Hallelujah!
Yes. That's it right there.
Yes.
They
Definitely.
actually do a good job.
Yeah. Big time. Well, I think we're towards the end, aren't we, bro?
Yeah, yes. I mean, there's a lot more I wanted to talk about, but that's okay.
That's
maybe
all right.
we can get Chris
Maybe-
back on.
Yeah, maybe
another
we can get
time.
him to come back.
I'd love to,
We can
guys.
get you to come
Thank you.
back.
And
Yeah,
maybe
do that.
maybe one day we'll have a studio and we'll look like we're actually sitting inside a booth. That would be
There
fun.
you go. Yeah.
I thought that's what I was going to get tonight. I'm a little disappointed, not going to lie, but yeah.
Well, it's a work in progress with us.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's right.
I mean,
that's right.
I got a friend
Good.
who he's a photo guy. He's a videographer guy, and he came up with a YouTube channel a year after us called Photo Learningism, and he started producing a video a week. And Daniel and I were like we got 60 subscribers. We're like patting ourselves on the back. Yeah. We started in 2017 with this thing. And my friend, he comes along and he's like, I'm up to 200 subscribers. I'm like, bro, really? How did you do that? I'm just consistently putting a video out each week on a certain day. And I'm like, the life of having 2 kids, my brother with 3 kids, and we just he lived in Orlando in 2017, and I had just moved to Bradenton gosh, I don't know, 6 years ago roughly, and we were starting this thing together, and then he had some issues and he had to move back to New York, and I'm like, well, how are we going to do this? We can't sit in the studio and do this together anymore. But so the Lord opened up opportunities for us to do things like this, and we've been able to move forward. And hallelujah, we're up to 170 subscribers.
Yeah,
Awesome.
71.
Awesome. Very cool. You guys are doing a good thing, and I'm honored to be on tonight. Thank you for the invitation. You're very gracious hosts. Great questions, and I'd be honored to come back.
Thank you. Awesome, man.
Hey, good. If you wanna put a few plugs on what you do, and I know you said that you have a new what's it called, a podcast coming, right? Life in
yes.
What's it called? Life in
Pages.
Life in Pages. Yeah. So if you want to do a plug right now, go ahead and let people know what you have. If you have a YouTube, we'll definitely let people know about your stuff.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, they can find out more on the fiction stuff, ruinsofthegalaxy.com. If they want to know more about me and all of my entire bibliography, they can look at christopherhopper.com. And then if they want more information on the podcast, just Life in Pages by Christopher Hopper on all of those podcast channels, Stitcher, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, all those. So, and then I'm on the social media channels, pretty active. So, yeah.
Cool.
All
Sweet.
Right. Well,
I think that's...
So everybody viewing, all of our fans, subscribers, patrons, thanks for coming on tonight. And if you're going to watch this later on, please don't hesitate to post, make comments, and
definitely
share this with all your friends. Subscribe, hit that bell button, and thanks for coming to Inside the Booth. Christopher, it was a pleasure. Thanks, bro. Appreciate you being here, man. And Daniel, love you.
I love you too.
Good question.
I love you both. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
All right, guys.
All right, thanks. Bye.